I'm Taylor, 27, college degree, decent at spreadsheets, terrible at pretending I love team building exercises. I work in HR at a mid-sized company, the kind with glass conference rooms that have blinds that never quite close, and a perpetual jingle of someone's Slack notification echoing down the hall. My title is HR coordinator, which sounds important if you don't know what that means here. Mostly, I'm the person who signs people in when their badges malfunction, orders donuts, and files forms that get opened once and then forgotten like tiny bureaucratic fossils. The job is absurdly easy for my skill set. I used to do real HR work at a startup where I wrote policy, mediated conflicts, and once literally saved payroll from imploding. Here, I'm overqualified to the point where my daily accomplishment is keeping my phone battery at 87% and having opinions about the break room coffee. I gossip with my desk neighbor Jenna. She's a font of terrible life decisions and excellent memes. And we scroll through LinkedIn like it's a charming open casket for our professional ambitions. We laugh, we roll our eyes, we rehearse interviews we'll never take. Why stay? Because the math is depressingly rational. Less work, same-ish paycheck, no unpredictable weekend calls. In this economy, comfort is a currency. I don't love the job, but I love my evenings, my mental bandwidth, and not spending my weekend crying into a stack of unpaid invoices. So I put my pride in a drawer next to the spare stapler and I show up. Showing up, though, doesn't mean I'm useless. When people are drowning in deadlines, spreadsheets that refuse to reconcile, managers who ghost, or simple things like paperwork that would make someone miss dinner with their kids, I help. Sometimes that means staying an extra 20 minutes to scan and deliver a form. Sometimes it means pulling 3 months of attendance records for a panicked team lead who forgot HR exists until Friday at 4:45 p.m. More often, it's small favors, swapping shifts, answering questions about benefits that should be in the handbook but aren't, and covering for someone so they don't have to take overtime. Call it charity, call it being the nice person in a building full of people who are busy doing whatever they've been told to do and nothing more. I call it sensible efficiency. It keeps the office functioning, people leave happier, and nobody writes a strongly worded email about how payroll is a dumpster fire. What's at stake is boring but real. My financial stability, my fragile sense of autonomy, and a weird, nagging pride about competence. I don't want to be the office martyr, and I don't want to be the exploited stopgap. I want a neutral equilibrium where my time is respected and my effort isn't treated like a communal freebie. That equilibrium seemed to be holding until I got called into Michelle's office. She asks me to come into her office like it's something small, the kind of summons you take because it's easier than the alternative. Michelle's office is the one with the fake succulent that somehow always looks dustier than everything else, and a framed motivational quote about ownership that looks smug and freshly laminated. She's sitting behind her desk, phone to one ear, file folder open like a prop. She waves me in with the kind of smile that's all jaw and no warmth. "Taylor," she starts, like she's delivering a syllabus correction. "Do you take on the responsibilities of other employees?" There's a pause that smells of paper and someone else's perfume. It's a question that could be answered easily, yes, no, but somehow she waits for me to make it sound worse. "Not really," I say, because I have a reflexive need to be pleasant even when it's useless. I don't take their responsibilities. I help people with their workload when they need it. If someone's about to miss payroll or a benefit deadline, I try to make it sound collaborative, not parasitic. I fill in so the office doesn't fall apart. She sighs, the kind of sigh people in middle management practice in mirrors. "Taylor, that can't continue," she says. "That's not outlined in your job duties." For a moment, my brain does the 3 things it always does in stressful situations. Recounts evidence, imagines the worst, and looks for humor. None of them help. I open my mouth to explain that we literally have a team of 4 people who occasionally need a 5th hand, that kindness is not a crime, that having someone who keeps the gears from grinding is actually cost-effective, and not the kind of thing executives write angry emails about. But Michelle beats me to the closing line. "We'll talk about this later," she says, already standing, already smoothing a sleeve. She shuffles papers like a conductor signaling the end of a scene. "For now, Go back to your desk." She says it like she's dismissing a child who asked too many questions at dinner. I stand there for a second, the room suddenly smaller, the lamplight too bright. My throat tightens in that human way when you feel accused of something you didn't realize was criminal. I begin, because there are 1,000 ways to explain how helping is different from taking on someone's job. I have examples queued like slides, the attendance report I pulled, the urgent benefits question at 5:15 p.m., the time I fixed a vendor invoice so that the whole payroll batch didn't explode. I see every one of these little favors like a string of small lights that together stop the office from being dark. Michelle's hand is already halfway to the door. "Go," she says, with a finality that leaves no room for nuance. The desk phone clicks into its cradle like a gavel. "We'll talk later." I leave with my mouth full of sentences I don't get to say. The hallway feels louder than usual, more fluorescent hum than human noise. Jenna's head pops up over her monitor and gives me the look that says, "Did you survive?" I nod, because I don't want to start a scene in the hallway that smells faintly of disinfectant and old coffee. By the time I reach my desk, I'm still flabbergasted in that precise, internal way, insulted, confused, and oddly embarrassed. How does helping people become a policy violation? Why am I being scolded for making other people's lives easier? The questions circle like wasps. I tell myself I'll let it go. Then again, I've been told to let it go before, right before the thing I tolerated turned into something worse. A few days after the "we'll talk later" meeting, the office was its usual soup of small urgencies. Jenna was swamped with a quarterly deck that had somehow been assigned to her and 3 other people who all thought someone else owned Slide 9. She pinged me from across the cube farm, breathless and desperate, like someone who'd accidentally scheduled a dentist appointment for the same time as a wedding. I went over, stayed an extra 30 minutes after lunch, and helped her tame the deck, cleaned up wording, fixed the table formatting, and, because of course, reconciled the footnote that used inconsistent date formats. Jenna left with a small, happy victory smile and a coffee she'd scored as thanks. Then Michelle floated by like a cloud that smells faintly of passive aggression. She stopped, folded her arms, and said, slow and deliberate, "Taylor, I need you to stop taking on other people's responsibilities." There was a moment where I considered saying, I only take on other people's responsibilities when the building is on fire. And then I remembered we weren't in a Quentin Tarantino movie. Instead, I said, level and careful. I'm not taking their responsibilities. I'm helping them meet deadlines so the team doesn't miss things. It keeps everything from cascading into a mess. Her smile thinned. It's not your job. We've discussed this. If you keep doing it, we'll have to consider disciplinary action. She let the warning hang there, like a fly on a lampshade. That was the part where my HR training, the one from my previous real HR life that had actually involved policy and not paperclips, decided to stand up. Being helpful is one thing. Being exploited is another. And I am an excellent explainer of the difference. So let me be clear, I said. If I'm helping people informally, that's one thing. If you're asking me to systematically perform duties outside my job description for one manager's convenience, that's a different thing. That's not fair to me or to the other employees whose work is being shifted around without compensation or formal recognition. She tried the manager smile again. We're not making threats, Taylor. We're asking you to stop. It's a boundary. I put my foot down. Boundaries are fine. So are fairness and transparency. If you want me to do consistent additional duties, make it official. If you don't, then don't single me out for doing small favors. She leaned in, voice low and dry. You should know, this kind of thing can be a fireable offense. There's a special mental noise that makes your face go a little hot when someone with power mentions your job hanging by a thread. My first instinct was indignation. My second was strategy. If I was going to be accused of overstepping, I could also use the rules I actually knew. The next week, Michelle stormed into my area with a paper folder and a scowl that looked like someone had stolen her office plant. We're missing the Henderson onboarding files, she said. Can you pull them? You're good with the filing. I stared at the folder like it had asked me to solve an ancient riddle. The old reflex, help fix, move on flared up. Then I remembered the way she'd curtly dismissed me, the way she'd waved me out of her office without hearing a single sentence. That week's microaggressions had become a small collection of receipts. I can, I said slowly, but I'm not doing that as a favor to you alone. If you want me to handle tasks like that, we need to make sure it's assigned formally, or I'll be doing the same for anyone who asks. Otherwise, it looks like selective enforcement of duties, and that's an HR problem. She blinked. I don't understand. You're the manager, I said. If you want me to take on recurring tasks that aren't in my job description, either update the job description, assign them in writing, or let me log them as temporary duties so compensation and workload are transparent. If I help you without that, then I have to help the whole team when they ask, or I'll file a note saying I was asked to perform duties outside my role. That's not a threat. It's process. Her jaw worked. For a fleeting second, I could see the math on her face. Extra work for her team versus the administrative hassle of documenting and reassigning. It was petty and delicious to watch. Fine, she muttered, folding the missing file folder and turning away with a half-hearted, just do it this once. I could have said yes and closed the loop. Instead, I tapped my keyboard, pulled up the shared folder, and, with the casual precision of someone who has spent too long in policy manuals, I copied the missing files checklist into the team's drive with a single new line at the top. Temporary HR assistance requests must be logged here and approved by Michelle. Repeated or ongoing requests will require formal role adjustment or temporary reassignment. I hit save and slid the message into the team's Slack with a neutral emoji. The channel pinged. Heads looked up. Jenna gave me a thumbs up. Michelle's face did this small, tight thing, somewhere between annoyance and the reluctant acknowledgement that she'd pushed the wrong button. You didn't have to post that, she said, but her voice had lost the edge. No, I replied. But I did. It's transparent now. If it's something you want consistently, we do it openly. If not, we don't make it my default. She relented that day, not with fanfare, but with a thin corporate acquiescence. The missing files were found. They'd been misfiled under last year's onboarding. Jenna's deck survived, and the small gears of the office continued to turn. For the first time since Michelle's original complaint, I felt something like equilibrium. It wasn't victory so much as a reestablished rulebook, which, being HR, felt deliciously appropriate.